Hey you guys, I'm trying a different kind of video today, one where you can see me down in the corner and see my screen at the same time. So I'm going to kind of walk you through this math lesson. We're looking at 8.4 today. We're going to try this video and see how it goes. So start with your math notebook, take out your pencil, and we're going to start with some notes. The title of our lesson today for 8.4, we're going to call it Leave It, Change It, Flip It. And you'll see why after we get going. So just find your notebook and take out your pencil. Put your title on. Let me get my pencil out here. Put your title and page number. Leave it. Change it. Flip it. Don't forget your page number. Okay. So think back to 8.1 when we saw that we could relate multiplication to division. We talked about that fact family thing where that inverse operation came into play, where multiplication is the opposite of division. And then I think it was in lesson 8.3 that we talked about that fractions are just division. They're telling you to divide. And so we're going to look at both of those concepts again today. And here's our first note for this lesson. Another way to divide fractions and whole numbers is to multiply. And then we could make a little note for ourselves here to see 8.1. Because we've already seen this once before, we just have to kind of remind ourselves how to do it. Okay. So keeping this in mind, another way to divide fractions and whole numbers is actually to multiply, to do the opposite. But there's a couple other things we have to do when we do that, and that's where the leave it, change it, flip it comes in. So if I had an equation that looked like this, 1/4 divided by 3. What would that equal? And we know how to go ahead and do this. In this case, when we have a fraction divided by a whole number, we usually would draw a picture and divide things up out of the whole, or if it was flipped and we had the whole number first divided by a fraction, then we would use our fraction strips. But this is a totally different way of thinking about it, and in my opinion, it's even a little bit easier. It's faster. We don't have to worry about drawing pictures or using fraction strips. So when we do the leave it, change it, flip it, we're looking at three separate things. Let me change my color here. We're looking at the first number, the operation, and the second number. Just like there's three directions, leave it, change it, flip it, we're looking at three different parts of our problem, okay? Before I get any further in this, I'm going to have you kind of look at this number right here, that whole number 3. What can we do with whole numbers to make them look like a fraction? Because it's a lot easier to divide and to multiply with fractions if they look the same. So what can I do with a whole number that will help me make it look like a fraction? Give you a minute to think about that. Should look something like this. Any whole number, we can put it over top of 1, because remember this fraction bar tells us to divide. 3 divided by 1 is just 3. So any whole number on top of 1 is itself. So this does not change 3 over here. It looks different, but it means the same. It has the same amount. So I'm going to rewrite this problem now. 1/4 divided by 3 over 1. Okay. So now my numbers look like fractions. They look the same, which is going to make this a lot easier. I'm going to go ahead and go on to the next page, but you keep writing on your same page in your notebook. I'm just out of room. Okay, I'm going to rewrite the problem up here so that we can see it. 1/4 divided by 3/1. I'm going to change color because this is a different thing. So the first step, step 1, is leave it. That's our first direction. And for this step, we're looking at the first number, which is 1/4. So we're just going to leave 1/4 alone. I'm going to rewrite 1/4 over here. Leave that alone. Step 2, whoops, trying to choose a different color and kind of going wonky. Step 2 is change it. And for the change it part, I'm going to look at the operation in the middle. From division, we're going to change it to multiplication. Leave it, change it. And I'm sure you've already predicted in your head what step 3 will be. Flip it. Okay, so for this step, we're looking at our second number here, 3/1. And I'm going to take this number, 3/1, and to flip it over, we're just going to take the whole thing and turn it upside down pretty much. 3/1 is going to flip and become 1/3. So basically you just turn the whole thing upside down. Numerator becomes the denominator, denominator becomes the numerator. Leave it, change it, flip it. Now that I have my new parts of the problem here, I'm going to rewrite and then we can solve. Maybe. There we go. 1/4. And if we go back and look, times, oh, there we go. And then go back and look again. It's not 3/1 anymore. We flipped it. Now it's 1/3. And now we have something that we know how to do. We can just multiply straight across and simplify if we need to. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. 1 times 1, of course, is 1. 4 times 3 is 12. And then our last step when we multiply with fractions is always to check for simplest form. Nothing goes into both of those together, so 1/12 is as small as it's going to get. Okay, hang with me. We're going to do some examples here. I guess this was kind of step 4. You can write this in your notebooks too. Step 4, multiply across. Oh my. Ah, my pen is going crazy. Let me see here. Undo. ACROSS, multiply across and simplify. Okay. Let's do a little practice. What I want you to do in your notebooks is to take your pencil and on kind of the bottom part of your page to cut it into 4 sections like this. This is going to be our practice. If we were in class, we'd do this on whiteboards, but since we don't have that option available, we'll just do it in our notebook. That way we have some examples to look back at if we get stuck later. Okay, let's try doing exactly what we just did, but with different numbers. Let's try doing 1/2 divided by 3. Very similar to what we just did, so this should be okay. I'm going to use a different color so that you can see. You, of course, will be still using your pencils. But let's do our rule here. I'm going to kind of write that at the top of the page, actually. Leave it, change it, flip it. Okay. Let me change colors again. The first step we wrote down is leave it, so this number is going to stay the same. 1/2. Second step is to change. We're going to change this from division to multiplication. We're going to do the inverse operation here. I think I might have said that backwards. We're going to change this from division to multiplication. And then the last step is to flip. But here I don't have anything to flip over. It doesn't look like I can do anything with that. What do we have to do with whole numbers to make it look like fraction? Go back to your example at the top of the page. What do we have to do with this number here? To put it over something. Okay, so if this is now 3 over 1, that's something I can flip over. I can turn it upside down. So instead of 3 over 1, I'm now going to do 1 over 3. And then just multiply and simplify. 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 3 is 6. Can't get any smaller than that, which is nice for us. Okay, let's do another example. Let's do 4, oops, not times. 4 divided by 1/2. So we're kind of turning this one around, where we started with a fraction divided by a whole number. Now it's backwards. Now we have a whole number divided by a fraction. Okay, before I even get started, I notice that I have a whole number here, and I have to do something with that before we can do leave it, change it, flip it. I have to make it look like a fraction. So we're going to go ahead and do that. First thing we're going to do is leave it alone. So 4 over 1 is going to stay as it is. Change our operation. Flip the second number over. So in this case, I've got a fraction here. The 2 will flip on top and become the numerator, and the 1 is going to flip to the bottom to be the denominator. Now I have 4 over 1 times 2 over 1. 4 times 2 is 8. 1 times 1 is 1. And now look at here. Check this out. I started with a whole number, and then we put it over 1 so that we could multiply. Now I've got a number over 1 again. What do you suppose we could do with this number to simplify it? Because right now we have an improper fraction where we have a big number on top and a little number on bottom. What do we do to fix that? Well, we know that we can divide to do that, but I'll make it even easier. Anytime you see a number over 1, it's just itself. Just like that. And we kind of looked at that earlier in our example when we had, in this case, we would have 8 divided by 1. Well, 1 goes into 8 times. So any number sitting on top of a 1 is itself. So you don't really have to worry about it too much. Okay, I'm going to give you a couple other examples to try on your own. In this box, try 5 divided by 1/4. And then in this other box, try 1/3 divided by 7. Okay, I'm running a little short on time here, so we're going to jump into our book questions, and I'm going to work on some of those with you. And then the questions you're supposed to do are on the paper, the assignment paper. Okay, this is the page that you're going to be starting with. Over here is where we're going to be starting today. All right. So they give you a little model. We don't necessarily have to use this, but you can if it makes it easier for you. But this is just what we were doing. They give you a division sentence, and they want you to write the multiplication and then solve it. So in this case, we've got 2 divided by 1/4, and we know to put that whole number over 1, and then leave it. They already changed it for us. Flip it. So the only thing we're missing is this back number here. 1/4, if we flip it upside down, becomes 4 over 1. Then we just multiply and simplify. 2 times 4 is 8. 1 times 1 is 1. Hey, that looks awfully familiar, doesn't it? I think we just did that in an example. When I have a number over 1, what does it become? How do we simplify a number over 1? If you wrote this down, good for you. You've been paying attention. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to do number 2 with you really fast. Multiplication. Leave it. change it, flip it.